Welcome to the Silent Personalities. Can one man rise from exile, reshape empires, defeat the most powerful Crusader forces of his time, and still be remembered by both enemies and allies as a symbol of honor? Born in Tikrit, raised in chaos, and forged in the fires of war, Saladin's story is not just history. It is the rise of a leader the world did not expect, but could never ignore. From a young Yusuf with no crown, no throne, and no kingdom of his own, to the Sultan who united Egypt and Syria, broke the power of the Crusader states, and changed the fate of Jerusalem forever. His journey was not built on luck, it was built on belief, discipline, and a vision far greater than himself. But what kind of mind leads armies with mercy, builds an empire with strategy, and still inspires respect from even his greatest enemies? And how did a man, deeply devoted to faith and knowledge, become one of the most feared and respected commanders in medieval history? This is not just the rise of a ruler. This is the untold journey of Saladin, where faith met power and history was rewritten forever. What made Saladin truly powerful, the sword, or his faith and character? Comment your answer below. Salah ad-Din Yusuf ibn Ayyub c. 1137 March 4th 1193, widely known as Saladin, was a Kurdish military commander and political leader who became one of the most influential figures of the medieval Islamic world. He founded the Ayyubid dynasty and served as the first sultan of both Egypt and Syria. Saladin is especially remembered for his key role during the Third Crusade, where he led the Muslim resistance against the Crusader states in the Levant. At the height of his rule, his empire stretched across Egypt, Syria, Upper Mesopotamia, the Hejaz, Yemen, and Nubia. Saladin's rise began when he accompanied his uncle Shirkuh, a Kurdish military commander serving under the Zengid dynasty, on a campaign to Egypt in 1164. They were sent by Nur ad-Din to help restore Shawar as vizier of the young Fatimid Caliph Al-Adid. However, political rivalry soon emerged. After Shawar was reinstated, tensions escalated between him and Shirkuh. During this period, Saladin distinguished himself through his military skill in battles against Crusader forces, and gradually gained influence within the Fatimid court, earning the trust of Caliph Al-Adid. When Shirkuh died in 1169 and Shawar was assassinated, Saladin was appointed vizier of Egypt. Though he served under the Shia Fatimid Caliphate, Saladin, a Sunni Muslim, began carefully shifting the state's direction. After the death of Al-Adid in 1171, he formally ended the Fatimid Caliphate in Cairo and restored allegiance to the Sunni Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad. Over the following years, Saladin strengthened his power by expanding his influence beyond Egypt. He led military campaigns against the Crusaders in Palestine, secured Yemen, and suppressed internal revolts. After the death of Nur ad-Din in 1174, Saladin moved into Syria and peacefully entered Damascus at the invitation of its governor. By 1175, he had taken control of Hama and Homs, defeating rival Zengid forces at the Battle of the Horns of Hama. Soon after, the Abbasid Caliph formally recognized him as Sultan of Egypt and Syria. Saladin continued expanding his territory, capturing much of northern Syria and parts of Upper Mesopotamia. Although he was unable to take Mosul, he also survived assassination attempts by the Order of Assassins. By 1182, his authority over Syria was largely secure after the capture of Aleppo. His most famous achievement came in 1187, when he led the Ayyubid forces to a major victory over the Crusaders at the Battle of Hattin. This victory allowed him to retake Jerusalem, a turning point in the Crusades that significantly shifted power in the region in favor of Muslim forces. Although the Crusader kingdom of Jerusalem continued to exist for some time afterward, Saladin's success marked a major decline in their dominance. Saladin died in Damascus in 1193. Despite his vast empire, he left behind very little personal wealth, having distributed much of it to those in need. He was buried in a mausoleum near the Umayyad Mosque. Today, Saladin is remembered not only as a major figure in Islamic history, but also as a respected leader in Kurdish, Arab, and Turkic traditions. He is often regarded as one of the most famous Kurdish figures in history. Early life: Saladin was born in Tikrit, in what is now Iraq. His given name was Yusuf, while Salah ad-Din was an honorific title, Lakab, meaning righteousness of the faith. His family was of Kurdish origin and is believed to have come from the village of Aydanigan, near the city of Dvin in central Armenia. He was the son of Najm ad-Din Ayyub, a Kurdish military officer who served as a mercenary commander. During Saladin's early life, the respected Sufi scholar Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani held great influence in the region, and Saladin was deeply shaped by his teachings and the scholars connected to him. In 1132, the defeated army of Zengi, the Atabeg of Mosul, was forced to retreat and found its path blocked by the Tigris River near Tikrit. At that time, Saladin's father, Ayyub, was serving as the town's warden. He assisted the stranded army by providing them boats to cross the river and offering them shelter in Tikrit. However, this act later brought him political trouble. Mujahid ad-Din Biruz, a former Greek slave who served as the Seljuk military governor of northern Mesopotamia, was angered by Ayyub's support for Zengi's forces. In 1137, after Ayyub's brother Asad ad-Din Shirkuh killed one of Biruz's associates, Ayyub was forced into exile from Tikrit. According to the historian Baha ad-Din ibn Shaddad, Saladin was born on the very night his family left the city. By 1139, Ayyub and his family had settled in Mosul, where Ahmad ad-Din Zengi later acknowledged Ayyub's service and appointed him commander of the fortress in Baalbek. After Zengi's death in 1146, his son Nur ad-Din took control of Aleppo and became the leading figure of the Zengid dynasty. Saladin later lived in Damascus and is said to have grown quite fond of the city. Although details about his early childhood remain limited, he once reflected on education by saying, "Children are brought up in the way in which their elders were brought up," suggesting that his upbringing followed traditional patterns of his time. According to his biographers, including Amri Ed and Al-Warani, Saladin was described as having knowledge of subjects such as Euclid's geometry, the Almagest, arithmetic, and Islamic law. However, this likely reflects the ideal image of a well-educated ruler rather than a detailed record of his formal studies. What is more certain is his strong grounding in Islamic teachings. He was deeply familiar with the Quran and the religious sciences, which connected him closely with the scholarly and spiritual circles of his era. Some accounts also suggest that during his education, he showed greater interest in religious learning than in military training. The broader historical context also influenced him. The capture of Jerusalem by the Crusaders during the First Crusade left a lasting impression on the Muslim world and may have shaped his outlook from an early age. Beyond religion, Saladin was well versed in Arab history and genealogy, including the lineages of Arabian horses, which were highly valued in his culture. He was also said to have memorized the Hamsa of Abu Tamim, a celebrated collection of Arabic poetry. Linguistically, he was multilingual. He spoke Kurdish and Arabic fluently and also had knowledge of Turkish and Persian. According to Baha ad-Din ibn Shaddad, one of Saladin's contemporary biographers, Saladin was a deeply devout Muslim. He was known to enjoy listening to Quran recitations, to pray regularly and on time, and to hold strong religious convictions. Ibn Shaddad describes him as someone who strongly rejected philosophers who deny God's attributes, materialists, and those who opposed Islamic law. At the same time, Saladin was closely connected to Sufism. He supported Sufi communities and sponsored the construction and maintenance of khanqahs, Sufi lodges in Egypt and Syria, alongside madrasas that taught traditional Sunni Islamic learning. His relationship with religion was central to his leadership, and sources often emphasize that jihad was one of his strongest commitments. Religious texts, including the Quran and Hadith, frequently speak about jihad, and according to accounts of his life, Saladin was especially focused on this idea. It is said that he constantly thought about military preparation and defense of the Muslim world. His attention was often directed toward matters of warfare, and he showed less interest in discussions unrelated to this purpose. Despite this, his rule also included moments where he took strict action against certain religious figures. In 1174, he ordered the arrest of a Sufi mystic, Qadir al-Kafas, in Alexandria. Later, in 1191, he approved the execution of the philosopher Yahya al-Suhrawardi in Aleppo, the founder of the Illuminationist school of Islamic thought. Ibn Shaddad records that Suhrawardi was accused of rejecting Islamic law, and after consultation with religious scholars, Saladin ordered his execution. Saladin was also firmly opposed to the Order of Assassins, a radical Ismaili Shia group based in Iran and Syria. He viewed them as heretical and considered them a serious political and religious threat, partly due to their alleged connections with Crusader forces. At the same time, Saladin welcomed many Sufi scholars from across the Islamic world into Egypt. He and his followers established and supported numerous khanqahs and zaviyas, which al-Makrizi later documented in detail. These institutions were meant for Sufis known for their piety, religious knowledge, and spiritual influence. His charitable foundations often aimed to attract Sufis from outside Egypt, particularly those with strong reputations for learning and devotion. If such individuals were not available, the endowments could also support poor jurists of respected Sunni schools such as Shafi'i or Maliki, especially those who followed Ash'ari theology. Overall, Saladin's religious life reflected a complex balance of devotion, scholarship, patronage, and firm ideological boundaries within the Islamic world of his time. If you thought this was powerful, the story is far from over. In part 2, you'll see how Saladin didn't just rise to power, but faced his greatest challenges, fought legendary battles, and came face to face with the most powerful Crusader kings in history. The real test of his leadership, his strategy, and his legacy is still ahead. So don't miss what happens next. Watch part 2 now and witness how history was truly made.